How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Mem Hey, Daf 145 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, today we're going to we're going to start the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Mem Daled Amud Beis, about halfway through the Amud. And we got this might be a big daf. Oh wow. I can't remember the last time we had a 50-minute daf. I mamish can't remember the last time we had a 50-minute daf. There's a possibility it might be 50 minutes. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's not a small daf. We're going to go from one Mishnah all the way to the next Mishnah on daf Kuf Mem Vav Murav. So it's almost really like a daf and a half, I'd say. Okay, here we go. We're going to start on daf Kuf Mem Daled Amud Beis at the Mishnah. Ha'achin she'asu miktzosun shoshvinus b'chaye ha'ov chazra shoshvinus chazra le'emtza she'ashashvinis nigbeis bebezdin. Wow. Did I get a mosquito bite? I don't know. I feel like I'm getting these random bites, but thankfully I haven't noticed any mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are schwer Zach. What shoshvin? Who could tell me what shoshvinin is? Who could explain to me what shoshvinin is? Shoshvinus? Okay, shoshvinus is the article translated as a groomsman. A groomsman. Sounds like a fun thing to do. A groomsman. And what that is that, the way that works is like Shimon is getting married, alright? Reuven and Shimon are friends, okay? Shimon is getting married, and Reuven is his groomsman. What he would do is he would give like lots of gifts and presents and stuff to Shimon, and it's all very nice and everything, and he would go to the chasna and he would eat and machlai b'dik. And that's what it means to be a groomsman. You get your friend a bunch of gifts and you go to the chasna and have a good time. Now, if Reuven was a groomsman for Shimon, so then Shimon has to reciprocate when Reuven gets married. Okay? And when Reuven gets married, so then Shimon has to give Reuven presents and go to the chasna and machlei b'dik. So that's what that means. So now here's the thing. Reuven and Shimon are friends, right? Okay. Now Reuven's father's name is Yaakov. So when Shimon got married, Yaakov gave a bunch of money or gifts to Reuven to give to Shimon. Givaldik. So now what happens is Yaakov dies. Yaakov is dead now. Now when Reuven gets married, so Shimon needs to return the favor. He needs to reciprocate. So the question is, when Shimon reciprocates, who does that money, who does those gifts and things go to? Do they go to Reuven? Or do they go to the estate? Because it was Yaakov who basically paid for the gifts that went to Shimon. So the shaila is, does that, right, and it's collectible in Bezdin, right? It's like a loan, right? You can, right? It's not like a nice thing for Shimon to do to reciprocate. He has to. It's a chiyuv. It's like a loan. It's, by shoshvinus, by groomsmen. If Reuven gave Shimon those things, Shimon has to reciprocate. And if he doesn't, Reuven can take him to court. So he doesn't necessarily have to give the same amount, as we're going to see later on the daf, but he must reciprocate. So therefore, because it's something that is owed. Because it's something that Shimon owes, the question is, does he owe it to Reuven or does he owe it to Yaakov, right? When Shimon reciprocates, does it go to the entire estate or does it go specifically to Reuven? So, says the Mishnah, so if you have some of the brothers that were groomsmen while the father was alive, so in our example, Reuven was a groomsman for his friend Shimon, while Yaakov was still alive, then Yaakov died, then Reuven gets married, Shimon now returns the favor, he reciprocates and gives a bunch of gifts in return. So chazu shoshvinus, chazu le'emtza. So when the groomsmanhood, when the groomsmen thing is reciprocated, so chazu le'emtza, it's reciprocated to the middle, i.e. it's divided among everybody. It goes to the estate, it doesn't go to Reuven. Shashashvinus nigbeis bebezdin, because since shoshvinus is something that could be collected in bezdin, it's considered be'etzim like a loan that needs to be repaid, and it's repaid to the estate. After all, it was Yaakov who funded it. Aval sholeach lechavero kadayayin v'chadeshemen. But if Reuven just sent to his friend Shimon pictures of wine and oil, but not as like a groomsman, he didn't necessarily stay for the wedding or whatever, he gave it as a gift. Well, then ein nigbin bebezdin, that cannot be, repayment cannot, or reciprocation cannot be demanded in bezdin, because that's just, acts of loving kindness, good deeds. So therefore, that would be a separate thing. All right. Viramini, but we have a contradiction, right? We had just said that when Shimon reciprocates, it goes to the entire estate and it's divided equally. But we have a brayso that says Shalach lo aviv shoshvinus, that if Yaakov had sent shoshvinus with Reuven for his friend Shimon, Kishi chozeres, when Shimon reciprocates after Yaakov is gestorben, chozeres lo, it goes to Reuven, not to the whole estate. Nishtalcha le'aviv shoshvinus, she chozeres mina emtza. Now, if Yaakov was owed shoshvinus, right? So if, for example, Yaakov was a groomsman for his friend, and then I guess maybe Yaakov got remarried, and then Yaakov died, and the friend is repaying Yaakov. No, wait, what? Wait, did I mess it up? Shachal aviv nishtalcha. No, fakert. Kishi chozeres mina emtza. Fakert. If when Yaakov got married, his friend had been his groomsman and had sent Yaakov gifts, and now Yaakov is dead, but the friend is now getting married, so the estate needs to pay for the friend's groomsmen stuff. Kshi chozeres min emtza, right? So therefore, when this groomsmanning is being sent to the friend, it comes from the estate. Amr of Asi Rabbi Yochanan. No. So how do we explain this discrepancy, right? In our Mishnah, we had said that when Shimon returns, right, that when Reuven gets married and Shimon is returning the shoshvinus, so the Mishnah said it goes to the entire estate. Yet this brayso says it goes specifically to Reuven, who was the groomsman. So Rabbi Asi Rabbi Yochanan kitnanai mastis, in our Mishnah also is nishtalcha le'aviv tnan. It's talking about when it was being paid back to the father. That oh wow, it's so confusing. Wait, what was it? It was when Yaakov. No, right. It's when a friend was a groomsman for Yaakov, then Yaakov died, and then the friend got married, so now Yaakov is responsible to be a groomsman, so that's what it's talking about in the Mishnah. So when it says that it's coming from the entire estate, it's talking about the entire estate needs to pay for Yaakov's friend's bride's manning. So again, Amar Ba'asim Rabbi Yochanan kitnanam masnis nishtalcha le'aviv tanan. It's talking about when somebody else was a groomsman for Yaakov, and now Yaakov needs to return the favor, but Yaakov is dead. But it says that the brothers were bridesmen, not that they other people were bridesmen for them. So Tani limiktasen. So instead of saying miktasen, say limiktasen, for them. And now they have to return the favor. But it says chazo shoshvinus, meaning that if the groomsmanning is being reciprocated to the estate, not that they are reciprocating to others. Katani, right? So achi kamer chazo legabos nigbeis memse. No, fakert. if somebody else is coming to collect from the estate, so then it's collected, it's divided among all of them. Wow, this didn't feel that complicated earlier, but in explaining it, it actually is a little bit complicated because it's like moving pieces. Who's doing what for who and who's reciprocating what? Rabbi Asi Omer. So now Rabbi Asi says, like we just quoted Rabbi Asi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, but Rabbi Asi himself says, Lo kasha, you could explain the discrepancy between the Mishnah that says that when the favor is returned, it's divided among everybody, and the Brisa says that when the favor is returned, it goes specifically to Ruvain. Lo kasha kan bistam kan b'mefarish. It depends what Yaakov had said when giving the shoshvinus to Ruvain for Shimon, for his friend Shimon. Kedatan is below the Brisa. Shalach lo aviv shoshvinus. Kishu chozeres lo shalach aviv shoshvinus stam kishu chozeres stam. So that if Yaakov specifically sent the shoshvinus with specifically for Ruvain, so then, or specifically with Ruvain, well then when it's reciprocated to Ruvain. But if he just sent shoshvinus for Shimon stam, well then it's when it's returned, it's divided among the estate. Fine. Okay. So again, Kintanya Shalach Lo Aviv Shoshvinus, that if Yaakov sent the Shoshvinus specifically for or with Ruvain, Kulminosan Lo Av Mos V'Shalcho Lasa Shoshvinus Kisayos Lo Avashalach Shoshvinus Stam Lichid LeEchad Mibanav. Right. Yidei Echad Mibanav Shalach. Right. Okay. So I guess if he is being specific about which son he's sending it with, well then when it's returned, it would be returned to that son. But if he just, was sending this shoshvinus, but not specifically with any son, one of his sons is going to have to bring it, but it wasn't like specific that he wanted that he intended for that particular son to bring it for any reason. Well then when it's returned, it will be returned to the state. Fine. Ushmuel Amai. And Shmuel says, says Shmuel that here we're talking about Yevamis. 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 Azoy. Azoy. Oh my gosh. Alright, Yevamis. This isn't easy. Wow. My brain doesn't want to do this so much. Okay. It doesn't take Wow. Okay, so this is talking about where Yaakov. Okay, so Yaakov was the. So our Mishnah that says that when Shimon reciprocates, so. And we said that Shimon's reciprocation is divided equally among the entire estate. So it's actually talking about the following scenario according to Shmuel. It's talking about where, Yaakov was a shoshvin. And then, he died. Okay. Now, one of his brothers, Yaakov only had one brother, Esav, but okay, in our example, maybe he had a few brothers. He had two other brothers, okay. So one of his brothers did Yibum with his wife. Okay. So one of the brothers is married to the wife. So now when Shimon reciprocates, so we're saying that would be divided among Yaakov's two brothers, not just the one who did Yibum with his wife. Because even though we say that the Yavam inherits his brother, but not beroi kiba muchzak, only things that his brother had at the time that he died, but collecting this shoshvinus would not be included, and that would be divided equally among Yaakov's brothers. So again, Ushmuel Amar says Shmuel, Hacha. When we say that it's divided equally among the estate, beyavam askinun, here we're talking about a yavam she'eno nota beroi kiba muchzak, that a yavam does not inherit his dead brother exclusively when it comes to will not inherit if it's potential, right? It only inherits things that his brother actually has at the time of the death, and this is something that's considered potential for this shoshvinus to be reciprocated, and therefore it would be divided equally among his brothers. Okay. Michlal de'idoch mishalim, but one second. Why would Shimon have to reciprocate the shoshvinus if Yaakov is dead? Meaning, what did Shmuel say? Shmuel said Yaakov is a shoshvin for Shimon. Okay, Yaakov then died. His brother did yibum with his wife. We're saying when Shimon reciprocates, it doesn't just go to the brother who did yibum; it goes to the entire estate. But why would Shimon be reciprocating? Reuven, right? Shimon would only reciprocate when Yaakov gets married, but Yaakov's dead. So lema tnuli shoshvini ve'esmach imo. Why would the brothers be able to demand from Shimon to reciprocate? Shimon's going to say, well, I'll reciprocate when Yaakov gets married, but Yaakov is dead and he's obviously not getting married. So why should I have to reciprocate? Milotani, after all, do we not learn in the Brisa, makom shnagu la'achzir kedushin machzirin makom shnagu shlo la'achzir ein machzirin? That, let's go back there for a second. For Amr of Yosef, Bar Abba, Amr Mar Ukva, Amr Shmuel, Lo Shanu Elo, Shemesa Hi, Aval Mesu, Ein Machzirin, my time Yuchol Li Shetomar, Tnuli Bal Ve'esmachi, Bo'achanami, Name it Tnuli Shoshvini Ve'esmachi. What's that talking about? That's talking about a scenario where a fellow was Makadesh a fella. A fellow was Makadesh a fella. Now, okay, so he gave her Kesef Kiddushin. Azoy. So now what happens is the wedding is called off. They're not going to get married. So the question is, what happens to the Kesef Kiddushin? Does she just keep it? So we say, well, it depends on the minig. Well, let's actually not say that yet. So who is this? Rav Yosef Bar Abba in the name of Mar Ukva, in the name of Shmuel said, well, first of all, it depends who broke it off. Okay, that if what was it? Mesa he have a mesa. Okay, so let's talk about death. Fine. So if he dies, okay, so then nobody can claim the kiddushin back from her, because if he died, so then she says, why should I have to return the kesef kiddushin? I mean, I didn't do it. I mean, I'm ready to get married. Obviously, it's not going to happen because he's dead. But I didn't. I'm not the one who backed out. I'm not the one who died. I didn't do anything, right? I'm ready to get married. Why should I have to lose the kesef kiddushin? But if she's the one who died, the question is, can the fellow say, I want my kesef kiddushin back? So there we say it depends on the minhag hamakom. If that's the minhag, then yes. If it's not the minhag, then no. So let's read that again. Right, so Tanya, Milotanya, don't we learn about it? So Malcolm Shinagu la'achzir kiddushin machzirin. So when she dies, so in a place where the minhag is that the fellow would get his kesef kiddushin back, so they return it. Malcolm Shinagu shelo la'achzir ein machzirin. If the minhag is that we don't return the kesef kiddushin, so then we do not return the kesef kiddushin. From Rav Yosef Bar Abba, Amar Ukva, Amar Shmuel, Lo Shanu Ela Shemesa Hi. That's only talking about when she's the one who dies. Aval, Meis Hu, if he's the one who dies, Ein Machzirin, she doesn't have to return the Kesef Kiddushin. How come? My timer, Yechola Yishatorim, because she could say, why should I have to return the Kesef Kiddushin? I'm ready to get married. Tnuli Baili, give me my husband, Ve'esmachimon, we'll get married. So therefore she doesn't have to return it. So Achanam, let's say the Zel B'Zachdu, let's say the same thing. That what happened? Yaakov was the shoshvin for Shimon. Okay, Yaakov's now gestorben. The estate is now says we want reciprocation. So Neima, let Shimon say Tnuli shoshvin v'esmachimo. I'm happy to reciprocate. Tell me when Yankiv is getting married. I'll be there. I'll reciprocate. Now, obviously, Yaakov is not getting married; he's gestorben. So I don't owe you anything. When Yankiv gets married, that's when I'll pay you back. Until then, leave me alone. So Rav Yosef Achov Ma'askin here we're talking about Kigon Shesamach Imo Zayin Yemei Mishte V'lo Yispik Lefaro Ad Shemes. Well, it's talking about where Yaakov. We're talking about where Yaakov got married, and Mamish right after the Sheva Brachis, he died. So therefore, Yaakov already did get married, and Shimon does have a responsibility to reciprocate now, and therefore the estate is saying, "Hey, Shimon, we want you to reciprocate," and we're saying in that case, it would not go to the brother who is Miyabe, Yaakov's wife. Rather, it would be divided equally among the estate. Wow, that was more than 20 minutes, and we're mamish just getting on to Kuf Mem Hey Amud Aleph. I'm telling you, this really might be a 50-minute daf. I can't remember the last time we had a 50-minute daf here in Masechta BavaBasra. Fregdi Gemara, Lema Tnuli Baili ve'esmach imo tanoi. Let's say that this inyan, that this concept of Tnuli Baili ve'esmach imo, right, by Kiddushin, when he dies, and his estate is claiming the Kesef Kiddushin back, and she says, "Look, give me my husband. I'll get married." So let's say that whether she could say that or not is a machlokes tanoim. The Tana that we're learning a Braisa, Hama'aris so Isha. So somebody who betroths a woman, a fellow is Ma'aris, is Makadesh, a fellow. Besula gov masayim v'amana mana. Okay, if it breaks up, so then if she's a besula, she will receive 200 for her ksuba. If she's an amana, she'll receive 100 for her ksuba. Makam shnagu lahachzir kiddushin machzirin. So a place where the minig is, to return the kiddushin, so they return the kiddushin. Makam shnagu shelo lahachzir kiddushin ein machzirin. And a place where the minig is not to return the Kiddushin, so we don't return the Kiddushin to Reb Nosson. That's Reb Nosson's opinion. Reb Yehuda Anossi Omer, says Reb Yehuda Anossi, right? As we learned in Masechta Bava Metzia, that Reb Nosson and Reb Yehuda Anossi were the last two Amoraim, were Sof Mishnah, the last two Tanoim. So Reb Yehuda Anossi Omer, Be'emes Amru, in truth they said, Malkum Shnagu Lahachzir Machzirin, that a place where the minig is to return the Kesef Kiddushin, we return it. Malkum Shnagu Shelo Lachzir Ein Machzirin, and a place where the minig is not to return the Kesef Kiddushin, we don't return the Kesef Kiddushin. Rabbi Yehuda Anossi Anatanakama. So 1 second, didn't Rabbi Yehuda Anossi just literally say the same thing as Reb Nosson? They both said that if the minig is to return the Kesef Kiddushin, we return it. The minig is not to return the Kesef Kiddushin, we don't return the Kesef Kiddushin. They literally just said the same thing. It's a machlokas in which they're both saying the same thing. It's a non-machlokas machlokas. Rather, let's say, you know what the difference is between Reb Nosson and Reb Yehuda Anossi? This inyan of Tnuli Baili ve'es machimo. Give me my husband and I will marry him. And I will be happy with him. And the Bryce is missing a few words, and you have to teach it like this. Okay, if a fellow is Makadesh a fellow, so Besula goive Mosai Bamono. So if she's a Besula, so then her Ksuba is 200, and if she's an Amana, her Ksuba is 100 if they get divorced or death or whatever. When do we say this? Right, when would we say Be'etzem that in the event of death or divorce, that the Kiddushin would be Choz. Wait, 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Wait 1 second. Okay. Wait, what? Okay. Okay. Beseder. Okay, Beseder. When do we say? I think when do we say that the money would be choser, right? Yeah. And when do we say that the Kesef Kiddushin would be choser, right? Yeah, that would have to be. Yeah, when do we say that the Kesef Kiddushin would be choser? To Hadar Bey Ihu, if he is the one who breaks up the betrothal. Aval Mesa, but if she dies, well then, Makom Shnagu Lahachzir Machzirin. If the minig is, if she dies, and if the minig is to return the Kesef Kedushin, then we return it. Makom Shnagu Shelo Lahachzir Machzirin. If the minig is not to return the Kesef Kedushin, so we don't return the Kesef Kedushin. Okay. V'davka Shemesahi, but that's specifically when she dies. But if he's the one who dies, Ein Machzirin, then we don't return the Kesef Kedushin. My time Akom Yocholi Shetoma, because she could say Tnuli Baili V'Esmachimo, just give me my husband and I will get married to him. Okay, so if he's the one who does, so according to the Tanakam, according to Ibn Nosson, we would say Tnuli Baili Vani Esmach Imo. Vasabura Nasi Lemeiman Rabuna Nasi comes to say Be'emes Amru Bein Meis Hu Uvein Meisahi, regardless of if he dies or she dies, Makom Shnagu La'achzir Machzirin, Makom Shnagu Shelo La'achzir Ein Machzirin. That if the minig is to return the Kesef Kedushin, we return it. If the minig is not to return the Kesef Kedushin, we don't return it. And therefore, even if he's the one who dies, if the minig is to return the Kesef Kedushin, she has to return the Kesef Kedushin. V'lomatzi Amrol, and she can't say Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo, that I'm ready to get married. Okay, so we want to say that according to Ibn Nosson, according to the Tanakama, we would say Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. According to Buddha Anosi, we don't say Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. So we see that this concept of Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo is a machlokes Tanoim. No. D'chuli Alma Yechola Shetoma Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. No. Both Ibn Nosson and Rabbi Buddha Anosi agree that Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo is a valid argument, and if he dies, so then if he dies, then she would be able to say, hey, I'm not giving back the Kesef Kedushin because Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. Where am I? Okay. Udemishu, and therefore when he dies, Kulam Lo Plige, both Reb Nosson and Rabbi Yehuda Nossi agree that she could say Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. Ki Plige, where they do argue, Shemesa Hi. They argue where she dies. Okay. The question is, when he gives the Kesef Kiddushin, when a fellow gives Kesef Kiddushin to a fellow, is that permanent? Does he have does he have any potential possibility of getting back the Kesef Kiddushin, or is it absolutely permanent? The nafkamina being that if she dies, so then would he be able to claim it back or not? Right? If you say Kiddushin Tivuin Nitnu, so then Tivuin Nitnu, so then it's final. He would not be able to reclaim it. If you say Kiddushin Lav Tivuin Nitnu, well then he can reclaim it. So Reb Nosson saw Kiddushin Lav Tivuin Nitnu. Reb Nosson says that Kiddushin Lav Tivuin Nitnu, and therefore he can reclaim it if she dies. Reb Yehuda Anasi Savar, whereas Reb Yehuda Anasi holds Kiddushin Tivuin Nitnu, that Kiddushin is permanent, and therefore he cannot ask for it back. So if he dies, she says, I'm keeping the Kesef Kiddushin because Tnuli Baili Ve'esmach Imo. If she dies, so according to Reb Yehuda Anasi, he cannot ask for the Kiddushin back if she dies because the Kiddushin was permanent. But didn't Rabbi Yehuda Nasi say that it's based on the minig hamakom, that if the minig is to return the Kesef Kedushin, it would be returned? And the gifts. When it comes to gifts, that after a fellow and a fella get engaged, the fellow gives her gifts, gives her presents. So regarding those presents, says Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, it depends on the minig hamakom. If the minig is to return the presents, they return the presents if she dies. If the minig is not to return the presents, they don't return the presents. Alright. Vani tanoi ki ani tanoi. Alright. And this concept of Kiddushin l'tivui nitnu is when Kiddushin is given, is it permanent or not? Let's say that this is a machlokas tanoim. 1 second. Okay. Alright. Fine. So let us say that this machlokas between Reb Nosson and Rebbe, that Reb Nosson says Kiddushin lavli tivui nitnu, and Rebbe says Kiddushin tivui nitnu. So let's say that this machlokas is like an earlier machlokas, meaning a machlokas from a previous generation of Tanoim. Kani Tanoi, the Tana is willing to Brisa, Kidsha Bekikar, that if a fellow is Mekadesh, a fellow with a kikar is, according to the Rashbam says 25 manas, so that's 2,500 zuzis. Apparently there's a Gemara in Bechoris that says it's 6,000 zuzis, but let's just go with what the Rashbam says here, 2,500 zuzis. So Kidsha Bechikar Besula, Gova Bechikar, Besula Gov Masayim V'Amana Mana. So if he dies or whatever, so that she would collect 200 zuz for if she's a Besula, 100 zuz if she's not Mana. Okay, Divrei Reb Meir, that's according to Reb Meir. Okay, fine. Alright. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says Rabbi Yehuda Besula Gov Masayim V'Amana Mana U'Mechazeres Lo Es Ashar. Rabbi Yehuda says that a Besula would be Gove 200, Almana Mana, and then the rest needs to be returned, right? So if she received 2,500 zuzes for Kiddushin, so she, so if she's a Besula, so she can hold on to 200 zuz for a Ksuba, but the rest, right, let's say, I guess they get divorced, let's say, and now he wants back the Kiddushin. So she gets her 200 zuzes, but she's got to give back the rest of the 2,300 zuzes. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, okay, so Rabbi Yossi is a bit confusing. The stuff in general hasn't been the easiest, but Rabbi Yossi is a little bit confusing. So be'etzem Rabbi Yossi, okay, 1 second. So let's just analyze this for a second. The Gemara is going to analyze it in a minute, but let's just analyze it ourselves for a second. So Reb Yehuda says that he was Mekadosh with 2,500 zuzis. They got divorced. She holds on to 200 zuzis and gives back the rest. So clearly, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Kiddushin lavli tivui nitnu, right? When he gave the Kiddushin, it wasn't final, wasn't permanent. They got divorced. He can ask for it back, so she keeps 200 zuzis and gives back the rest. Kiddushin lavli tivui nitnu. Reb Meir doesn't say anything about the Kiddushin going back, and therefore Reb Meir's opinion would be Kiddushin l'tivui nitnu, right? The Kiddushin is given in a permanent manner, right? It's not going to be returned. Rabbi Yossi, however, is uncertain about whether Kiddushin is l'tivui nitnu or not, and therefore she would retain half of the Kiddushin and give back the other half of the Kiddushin. Okay, now let's read it inside. Rabbi Yossi's opinion is confusing. You'll see why it's confusing in a second when I find where we are. So Rabbi Yossi, Omer says Rabbi Yossi, okay, Kidsha be'esrim. Okay, so if he was Mekadosh, not with 2,500 zuzis, but with 20 shekels. Now, it's 4 shekels in a zuz. So when he says Kidsha be'esrim, he was Mekadosh with 20 shekels, essentially that's 80 zuzis. Okay, so the Kesef Kiddushin was 80 zuzis. So now, they got divorced. So she can hold on to half of the 80 zuzis, i.e. 40 zuzis. So she retains 40 zuzis. Now, if she's an almana, and almana's ksuba is 100 zuzis. So she retains 40 zuzis from the Kiddushin. There's an outstanding balance of 60 zuzis. Okay. 60 zuzis is, okay. Yeah, it's confusing. Let's go back there for a second. Okay, so she's still owed 60 zuzis. Right? Her Kiddushin was 80 zuzis. She keeps half of it, gives back half of it. She has 40 zuzis. She needs another 60 zuzis. No sein la shloshim chatzoin. He gives her 30 halves. The heck does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. 30 shekels. Remember, the outstanding balance is 60 zuzis. 30 shekels is 120 zuzis. Half that is the 60 zuzis. That is the balance. So, Keilu, it doesn't say that he gives her the outstanding balance of 30 zuzis. It's not 30 zuzis. That would be twice as much. That would be 30 shekels. That would be 120 zuzis. Therefore, he says 30 half shekels, right? Therefore, that's 60 zuzis. And Yeah, that is that. So again, Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi kitcha be'esrim, if he was mekadosh her with 20 shekels, which is 80 zuzes, and then they get divorced, and now she keeps 40 zuzes, and there's an outstanding balance of 60 zuzes, nosin la shloshim chatzoyin, so he gives her 30 half shekels, which is 60 zuzes. Kitcha b'shloshim, and similarly, if he was mekadosh her with 30 shekels, which is 120 zuzes, and then they get divorced and she holds on to half of it, which is 60 zuzes, so the outstanding balance is 40 zuzes. So no sin lo esrim chatzoyin, he gives her 20 half shekels, because 20 shekels would be 80, half of that is 40, which is the outstanding balance. Now, b'mayaskinan, what is so this machlokas, okay, between Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, what is the scenario? Ilim Shemesa, if it's talking about where she died, okay, if it's talking about where she died, so mi isla ksuba, so if she died, then how could she collect the ksuba? She's dead. So how can we talk about Mona Masayim? Vela Shemesu, okay, maybe we'll talk about where he's dead. But if he's dead, then why are we talking about giving back Kiddushin? He's dead. Amai, why are we talking about returning anything to him? He's gestorben. V'neima tnuli ba'ali v'es machimo. Let her simply say, I'm not giving back the Kiddushin to the estate. I mean, I'm ready to get married. Give me my husband. Let's get married. Ve'ela be'eshes Yisrael shezinsa. Okay, maybe he's talking about an Eshes Yisrael, and she was mizana. That's why the marriage is dissolving. Uvemai iberatzin. Well, if it was consensual, she's a married woman and she has an affair, well then, mi'isla ksuba, he wouldn't have to pay her ksuba if she had an affair. So ela ba'onis. Okay, so maybe it was not consensual, it was onus. But mishushayile, well, if it was onus, well then they could stay married. Why are we talking about dissolving the marriage? I mean, unfortunately, there's a situation of onus, but they could stay married. Okay, no, so rather, what it must be talking about is Eshes Koyin Shenensa. It's talking about Eshes Koyin Shenensa. Oh, it's talking about Eshes Koyin Shenensa. It's talking about Eshes Koyin Shenensa. That if it was a situation of onus and he's a kohen, so they can't remain married anymore. So they have to break up the marriage, and we're saying that she would get her Mona Masayim, and he would be able to get his Kiddushin back. So, it would be Kiddushin the Tivu and Nitnu, coming again. The Machlokas is between, do you say Kiddushin the Tivu and Nitnu, or not? Reb Meir, Sava Kiddushin the Tivu and Nitnu. Reb Meir says, yeah, when he gives the Kesef Kiddushin, it's final, and therefore Reb Meir doesn't say anything about giving anything back, the Kiddushin. Reb Yehuda says, Lavi Tivu and Nitnu. That Kiddushin Lavi Tivu and Nitnu, and therefore Reb Yehuda says, look, she keeps, what she's owed for her ksuba, either mana or masayim, and the rest she gives back to her husband. And Reb Yossi is uncertain if Kiddushin L'Tivu and Nitnu or not, and therefore Vilkoch Kitcher Be'esrim Nosin La Shloshim, if he's Mekadosh with 80 zuzes, and she keeps, right, so then she keeps half of it, which is 40 zuzes. There's an outstanding balance of 60 zuzes, which is Shloshim Chatzoyin. Kitcher B'Shloshim, if he's Mekadosh with 120 zuzes, then she would keep half of it, which is 60 zuzes, with an outstanding balance of 40 zuzes. Nosin La Esrim Chatzoyin, so you would give her 20 half zuzes, which is half shekels, which is 40 zuzes. Amr of Yosef Bar Manyomi, Amr of Nachman, Bavel Makom Shenoagu Lachzir Machzirin. So it says of Yosef by Manyomi Amr of Nachman. So the Girsa here says Bechol, but there's another Girsa that says Bavel. That Bavel Makom Shenoagu Lachzir Machzirin. That Bavel is a place that the minig is to return the Kiddushin. Tirguma Narda. When it says Bavel, what does it mean? Bavel means Narda specifically. They would give back. The minig was that they would give back the Kiddushin. Okay, fine. Shai Bavel Mai, what's the halacha with the rest of Bavel? Rab of Rav Yosef Darmitavai Moare Hadre Kiddushe Lo Hadre. That the Mohar would be like financial gifts that the husband pledges to the or gives to the wife after Kiddushin. So, right, while they're during Erison, so that would go back to the husband, but not the actual kesef kedushin. Amar Papa says, Papa Yochsa bein shemes hu bein shemesa he, that whether he dies, whether she dies, v'hadarbe, or whether he initiates a divorce, v'hadarbehu mohare hadre kedushet lo hadre. The financial gifts would be returned, but not the kiddushin. Hadra ba'ihi, but if she is the one who initiated the divorce, afilu kiddushe nami hadre, even the kiddushin would go back to the husband. Ameimar Omer says ameimar kiddushe lo hadre, that even the kiddushin never goes back. Gizer shema yomu kiddushin tovsin ba'achosa, because we're concerned that if you return the kesef kedushin, people might mistakenly think that that the marriage was never valid, and therefore they might think that he would now be able to marry her sister, which he cannot do. Rav Ashi Amar Gita Mochiach Choleh. Rav Ashi says, yeah, but when they get divorced, there would be a get. So the fact that there's a get would sort of prevent anybody from making mistakes. But no, that's not the case. Because you could have somebody who heard about the kiddushin being choser but doesn't know about the get, and therefore they could get confused and think that they were never actually married, and that the marriage was never actually valid, and they might think that he would now be able to marry her sister, but he would not be able to marry her sister. Okay, the Mishnah had said Shoshvinus Nigbeis Bebezdin, that this shoshvinus is collectible in Bezin. Tanarban, the Rabbi taught, Chamisha Dvarim Nemru B'Shoshvinus, 5 things were said about shoshvinus. Nigbeis Bebezdin, it could be collected in Bezdin. Okay, so if Reuven was a shoshvin for Shimon, and then Reuven gets married and Shimon did not reciprocate, Reuven can make a claim against Shimon in Bezdin. V'chozer is be'onasa, and when does Shimon reciprocate? At the proper time. What's the proper time? When Reuven gets married. Ve'ein ba mishum ribis, and there's no interest. Meaning, if let's just say Reuven has a lot of money, and Shimon does. Let's say fakert, Reuven doesn't have that much money. Shimon has a lot of money. So when Shimon gets married, Reuven's got a lot of money, and he buys a very, very expensive gift for Shimon. When Reuven gets married, Shimon needs to reciprocate, but he doesn't. Wait, what? No, it's fakert, right? Fakert. When Reuven does not have a lot of money. So when Shimon gets married, Reuven bought a gift for Shimon, the nicest gift, right. A very nice gift, but not particularly a very expensive gift. Shimon, however, has a lot of money. When Reuven gets married, Shimon mamish goes over the top and buys a very expensive gift. That would not be considered ribis. It would not be considered like Reuven had loaned Shimon money and now Shimon's paying back Reuven and it's ribis. It would not be considered ribis. The Gemara is going to explain this. Also when Shvius comes, right? So let's say Shimon had gotten married before Shemitah, and Reuven got married after Shemitah. Shimon can't say, wait, I'm off the hook. Shemitah, right? Shemitah nullifies, what's it called? Shemitah forgives whatever, all loans or whatever. So meaning, okay, Shimon got married before Shemitah. Reuven was his shoshvin. Shimon now owes Reuven. Reuven gets married after Shemitah. Shimon can't say, wait, Shemitah canceled it. No, Shimon still owes Reuven. And as we said earlier, when Shimon repays the estate, so the Bechor would not get a double portion in that. Nigbeis Bebezdin, says the Gemara, my time. How come the shoshvinus is, Reuven could claim the shoshvinus against Shimon and Bezdin? Kimil v'dami, because it's like a loan. Ve'ein ba mishum ribis, and yet there is no interest to lavadai to dach yoivle, because that's not kind of the way it works, right? Meaning, right, as I explained earlier, right, if Reuven gave Shimon a modest gift, and Shimon gives Reuven a gevaldig, a very expensive gift, that would not be considered ribis. How come? So the Gemara says, because that isn't why Reuven gave Shimon the gift. Meaning, Reuven did not kind of write down how much money he paid and says, okay, Shimon, you have to pay me back this amount. No, Shimon could even pay less. Taka, right? Let's say it was fakert. Let's say Reuven was very wealthy. So when Shimon got married, Reuven bought Shimon a very expensive gift. Shimon is not, doesn't have as much money as Reuven. So when Reuven gets married, Shimon buys Reuven a more modest gift. That's completely acceptable. So this isn't a loan that needs to be paid back in full. It's a favor. I don't know. It's a whatever. It's a gesture that needs to be reciprocated, but nobody's counting who paid how much money. Right, and therefore, Shimon can even get the gift that Shimon gives Reuven can be less expensive than the gift that Reuven gave him. Like, and that's also completely fine. So this isn't a loan in the sense that like a specific amount needs to be paid. This is a gesture that needs to be reciprocated. Okay, and any amount is fine as long as the gesture is reciprocated. Ve'ena shvius mishamatza, and come shvius, the reciprocation requirement remains intact. The lo karina bay lo yigos, right? By shvis it says that you can't pressure somebody to repay the loan. But right, as we've seen in the past, and apparently we're going to learn in Masechta Makis, right? After we finish BavaBasra, we're going to learn Masechta Sanhedrin. After that, Masechta Makis. So we've seen this in the past, right? For example, if there's a 10-year loan, right? If somebody says pay me back in 10 years, so obviously Shemitah is going to be within 7 years, right? So because the due date for the loan is in 10 years, so Shemitah will not cancel it out. So here also, when Shemitah came, Reuven had not yet gotten married, so there wasn't yet a requirement for Shimon to reciprocate. So therefore, it would even be past Shemitah, even past Shemitah. If Reuven gets married, Shimon would reciprocate. And a Bechor would not receive a double portion from the reciprocation. Because it is something that is in potential, right? When the father died, it wasn't yet repaid, and therefore it was something that will in the future be repaid. But when it's but that would be ra'oi, and a bechor is not nota b'roi b'muchsa. Omer of Kahana says of Kahana klala de shoshvinusa. The general rule by shoshvinus hava b'mata iboyle lemesa. So if so Reuven was Shimon's shoshvin. So when Reuven gets married, so if Shimon is in the town when Reuven gets married, he's got to go to the chasana and machlai b'dik. Shama kol tavla iboyle lemesa. If Shimon hears the sound of the bell, apparently at the beginning of a chasana there would be a bell. If Shimon hears the bell, he's got to report to the chasana. Lo shamakal tavla. If Shimon doesn't hear the sound of the bell, iboyle lo due. Well, then Reuven needs to at least let Shimon know that he's getting married, so that Shimon should come. And if Reuven does not let Shimon know, taromes isle, maybe Shimon will be annoyed, like, hey, why didn't you tell me you were getting married? But Shalom and Mishalim, still, even though he didn't make it to the chasana, still he would have to pay Reuven the reciprocation. Ve'ad kama, how much can he deduct from the reciprocation, right? Because after all, he didn't go to the chasana. Reuven didn't have to pay for a meal for Shimon. So Shimon should be able to deduct that from the reciprocation. The people of Genon had the minig ad zuzah. You can assume that a zuz is how much you eat at the chasna, so you could deduct a zuz. Aisa bechape ad zuzah aisa bechape ochle bekaise. That if you bring a zuz with you, so that's what you're going to end up eating. That's you end up eating at a chasna a zuz. I end up eating at a chasna much less than a zuz. I went to a chasna last week. I don't think I ate anything. I drank 3 cups of wine. I remember that. I don't think I ate anything at the chasana, because I was learning when everybody was eating. When everybody was eating, I was learning, and that was it. Yep. I don't think I ate anything. I drank 2 cups of wine though. Very geschmack. Yeah. Weiter. Chaval, I should have told them I wasn't coming. They wouldn't have had to buy a meal for me. Yeah, somebody else probably ate my food anyways. It's a chevra wedding, Akoponim. Where am I? Truth is, yeah, that's always like a funny middle ground. Like when I'm going to the wedding, but I also want to say like, don't buy me food. I'm not going to eat anything. Like, you don't want to say you're not going. It's nice when they have an option like when they say, are you actually going, or are you just saying you're going kind of thing? And you're like, oh, I'm just saying I'm going. Yeah, that was on a chasna I went to at one point, which was great. They said like, okay, should we actually like, are you going to like just be hanging out, or are you actually going to like eat, basically? I was like, oh, I'm just hanging out. That was perfect. Okay, now if somebody's going to be bringing as shoshvinis, like a gift that's like 4 zuz, well then he's a koch level. Then he's a macher. Probably more of a macher than a koch level. Koch level is a funny word. But yeah, if he's going to bring a daled zuz's worth of gifts, then he's a big macher. Then they're going to feed him good. They're going to fill him up with food. So then the food would be two zuzes. And if he's even going to bring more than that, well then relative, to how much I guess he's bringing, that's how much they'll stuff him up, and that's how much you can calculate for how much the food would have been. Also, imo befumbi. Okay, so if Ruvain made a big public display for Shimon, but then when Ruvain gets married, he wants Shimon to just do a more modest shoshvinis. Shimon could say, no, look, you did a big public thing for me, I'm doing a big public thing for you. Also, imo bibsula uvikesh lasos imo be'almona. If when Shimon got married, Shimon was marrying a basula. Ruvain, however, is marrying an almana, and he says to Shimon, can you reciprocate for me with an even though I'm marrying an almana? Yachalomalo. Shimon could say, "Bibsula imcha k'derech she'asiso imi." No, I will reciprocate when you marry a basula, just like I did. Also, imo b'shniya, if this was Shimon's second marriage, uvikesh lasos imo b'rishona, and now it's Reuben's first marriage. So Shimon could say, when you get married a second time, that is when I will reciprocate. Also, imo be'achas, if Shimon married one woman, but Reuven was marrying 2 women, Shimon could say to Reuven, I will reciprocate when you marry one woman, just like when I got married. Atir nichsin, atir pumbi. Somebody who is wealthy with property, is wealthy with what's Pumbi again? Timon and Pumbi. What's Pumbi? Pumbi. Where am I? Okay, let's go. Come on, the people are waiting. Pumbi is, drum roll. Okay, if he's rich in properties or conspicuously rich. Okay, what's that? Okay, it means that wealth is openly displayed. Alright, fine. So, okay, where am I? So, zehu bal agadah. This is like shtickle agadata. So, meaning somebody, so who is somebody, or what is a metaphor, or somebody who is openly wealthy is metaphorical to somebody who's a bal agadah. But somebody who knows agadata, somebody who knows interesting Hasidic Torahs, things that you can give around, and everybody's like, that's gewaldig, I love that, right? Things you always have Torahs, that very cash Torahs that you can always be sharing. So that is somebody who's open and his wealth, i.e. his Torah, his learning is on display. Somebody who knows lots of Agadata, lots of Hasidic Torahs, things and stuff to share. Atir Sloim, Atir Tkoa, somebody who's wealthy with drumroll please, rich in coins and rich in tekoin oil. So that would be, drumroll, Baal Pilpul, somebody who learns real stark and comes up with big chidushei Torah, things like that. You're not necessarily going to interest all the people at the Kretschmer, but you have big chidushei Torah. Atir Mishach, Atir Kimas, drum roll. Somebody who is rich in things that are measured and things that are stored. Azoi. Zeu Baal Shmuis. That's somebody who knows like lots of teachings and things, but he's not necessarily extracting Chidushay Torah from them. And everybody needs the owner of wheat. That is the master of Gemara. Okay, everybody needs somebody who is a master of Gemara, because you have to learn the Daf Yomi Shir. Omer Reb Zera says, Reb Zera, Omer Rav, what does the pasuk mean? Kol yimei ani roim. All of the days of a pauper are bad. Zebal Talmud, that is somebody who studies Gemara, because Gemara is hard. V'tov le mishte tomid, and somebody, a good-hearted people, a person who's good-hearted, he's always feasting, he's always partying. Zebal Mishnah. It's a person who learns Mishnayos, because Mishnayos are not as complicated per se as Gemara, so it's an easier life. Tov lev mishte tomid. Right, that's the pasuk. Right? Kol yimei ani roim v'tov lev mishte tomid. We're going to expound a few different readings of that pasuk, expositions of that pasuk. Rava Omer says, Rava ipcha fakert, that kol yimei ani roim is Mishnah, because Mishnah is not as exciting as Gemara. But v'tov lev mishte tomid, that is, we learn Gemara, Babylon, Talmud, we have a great old time. V'hanu damer of Mishasha, and this is what Rav Mishasha says, that the learning is more exciting than the Gemara is more exciting than the Mishnayos. Mishmei de Rava, ma'dichsiv masia avonim ye'otzev boim, that somebody who quarries stones will be saddened by them, weakened by them. Drum roll, please. He who quarries stones will be wearied by them. He who chops trees, right? He who chops trees will be warmed by them, right? So, okay, let's go weiter. That those who quarry stone will be wearied by them. That's people who study Mishnah. They get worn out. But those who chop wood will be warmed by them. Those are the people who learn Babel on Talmud. They'll be warmed by it. Babel on Talmud warms your soul. Reb Chanina says, Reb Chanina, that when we say that all the days of the pauper are bad, that's somebody who has a bad wife. And a good-hearted person parties always. That's somebody who has a good wife. Rabbi Yana says, all the days of a poor person are bad. That's a person who's very, very finicky, very, very particular about everything. He's always very particular about everything. A good-hearted person is always partying. That's a person whose das is expansive. Rabbi Yochanan Omar says, all the days of a pauper are bad. Zerachmin v'tov lev. That's a person who has mercy and compassion and a good heart. No, I'm sorry. Oops. Zerachmin. That's a person who is merciful, compassionate, and I guess he's always hurting for other people. V'tov lev mishta tomid ze'achzori. That's a person who's is a rough fellow. He doesn't care about anybody else. He's just out having a good old party. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Omar Koi Me'ani Roim, says Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, when it says all the days of a pauper are bad, Zeshadaitu Ktsara, that is a person who's Daitu is Ktsara. He gets angry and stuff like that. Yeah, it doesn't sound so fun. But Tovle Mishta Tamid, but a good-hearted person is partying always. Zeshadaitu Rechava, that's somebody whose das is expansive. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Koi Me'ani Roim, what do you mean all the days of an ani are bad? What about Shabbos and Yom Tov? Gewaldig. Kedishmul, Shmuel, it's like Shmuel, that Shmuel says, Shinui veses tchilas choli. That when you change your routine, that's when you get sick. So meaning if the whole week he's scrounging for food, he's got nothing to eat, but then on Shabbos all of a sudden he has access to Geshmak Kiddush and Sudas, well then kind of this bouncing between extremes of starving during the week and being filled up on Shabbos is going to make him sick. So that's also no good. Ksiv B'Sefer Ben Sira, it says in the book of Ben Sira, that all the days of a pauper are bad. Ben Sira, Omer says, Ben Sira, Af Leilos Bishval Gagim Gago, that even at night. Wait, what? Okay. Wait, what? And even at night, it's not just the days, but even at night, where does he go to sleep? His roof is lower down than everybody else's roof. And therefore, when it rains, all of the water goes and drops off of the upper roofs right onto his roof, and is just pouring onto his roof all night. And his vineyard is at the top of the mountains. And therefore, when the rain comes, all the topsoil, all the good stuff gets washed away and goes down to the bottom where the wealthier people have their fields, and they get the better soil. Okay, I'm sorry. Wow, that was Avkuf Memei. I think this may have been an hour, or right on the verge of it. I knew this was going to be a big one, like a Bav Metzia daf. Wow, we're talking about a lot of stuff, primarily about like this Shoshvinu stuff and how it gets returned to the estate, and in what cases is it divided among everybody, in what cases it goes specifically to the person who brought it. And we talked about Tnuli Baili ve'esmach imo. We talked about Kiddushin Tivuin Nitnu, all sorts of interesting things. Peace out.